We are starting on foot in the far southeast corner of Minnesota, only about 2 miles from the Iowa line, where a small river was dammed more than a century and a half ago to turn a mill. The water it made is still here, and the trail we are walking wraps all the way around it. This is Lake Louise State Park, and almost nothing about it is accidental. Every bend of this path traces a decision someone made to grind grain, to save a woodland, to give a gift to a town. Over the next hour, we are going to follow that story around the shoreline. Let me place us on the map first. We are in Mower County, in the flat farm country of far southern Minnesota, tucked into the last mile or two before the state gives way to Iowa. The nearest town is Leroy, a small farming community that grew up along the railroad in the 1850s. Rochester lies off to the north, and the Iowa border runs just to the south. It is easy country to drive straight past, which is exactly why so few people know what is hidden in this pocket of trees and water. The lake comes into view through the trees almost at once. It is not large, only about 25 acres of open water, ringed by cattails and overhanging limbs. On a still October morning like this one, the surface holds a near-perfect reflection of the far bank. You would be forgiven for thinking it was a natural pond, shaped by ice or fed by a spring. But this water is here because people put it here, and to understand why we have to go back to the middle of the 1800s. After the land around here was surveyed in 1853, settlers laid out the town of Leroy and looked to the river for power. They built a dam across the upper Iowa River, and the pond it raised drove a grist mill that ground the local grain into flour. In a frontier community with no railroad yet and few roads, a mill like this was the center of everything. Farmers hauled their wheat here, and the whole settlement organized itself around the sound of the millstones. The lake you are looking at began its life as that working mill pond. Walking the shore path, it is worth watching the water for a moment. The current here is gentle, but it is real because 2 rivers feed this basin rather than one. The trail crosses low, damp ground where the soil stays soft even in autumn. Willows and silver maples lean out over the edge, their roots gripping the bank. All of this greenery exists because of the water that the old dam holds back. Lake Louise sits at a meeting of waters, the confluence of the upper Iowa River and the little Iowa River. The upper Iowa is the larger of the two, a river that will eventually carve deep valleys as it crosses down into Iowa. The little Iowa arrives from the north, having wound through farm fields, woods, and a wildlife area before it reaches the park. Where the two streams come together, their combined flow is what the dam gathers into the lake. It is a quiet junction, but it is the reason this exact spot was chosen for a mill in the first place. The trail pulls away from the water now and climbs a little onto firmer ground. The footing changes from soft riverside soil to a drier, grassier tread. Oak leaves crunch underfoot, a sign that we have left the wet bottomland and entered something older and higher. This gentle rise is the edge of a savanna, and we will come back to what that means. For now, notice how quickly the landscape shifts in just a few hundred steps. The man at the heart of this park was named Conrad Hambrecht. Sometime in the late 1850s or early 1860s, he settled on the upper Iowa River here in Leroy Township, on land that ran right along the water. He was a miller and a landholder, part of the German-speaking wave of settlers who came to this corner of Minnesota. But Hambrecht did something unusual for his time. Rather than clear and farm every acre he owned, he set a piece of his riverfront aside and kept it as a place to walk and gather. As the path threads between the trees, try to picture this ground as private land 150 years ago. The same oaks, or their ancestors, would have shaded the same banks. A family chose not to plow this, not to sell it off for lumber, but to leave it standing. That single decision is the reason we can walk here today. Very few parks anywhere can trace their existence to one family's restraint. Hambrecht called his riverside ground Wildwood Park, and he opened it for recreation while it was still his own. When the old grist mill was finally abandoned, his family gave several acres of that land to the village of Leroy to keep as a public park. The pond beside it needed a name, and they chose Louise, after a member of the Hambrecht family. So the lake we are circling carries a personal name, a family remembrance folded quietly into a public place. That is why it is Lake Louise, and not simply the mill pond on the Iowa. The trail here runs level and open, an easy walking grade beneath scattered big trees. It is the kind of path a family in long skirts and Sunday coats could have strolled in the 1890s. Benches would not be out of place, and neither would a picnic basket. This has been ground set aside for pleasure, not profit, for well over a century. In that sense, it is one of the oldest patches of parkland in all of Minnesota. The lake has not always been so calm. The original mill dam was eventually washed out, and in the early 1900s, a flood tore away the structure that held the water. Without a dam, Lake Louise would simply drain back into its rivers and vanish. So the citizens of Leroy rebuilt it, and the dam that steadies the lake today was constructed in 1925. Every reflection you see on this surface depends on that rebuilt wall of concrete and earth doing its quiet job. Coming back toward the water, you can often hear it before you see it, a soft rush where the lake spills over the dam. The trail crosses near the outlet on a firm footpath. Below the spillway, the river gathers itself again and continues south toward Iowa. It is a good place to stop and feel how thin the line is between a lake and a river here. One low structure is all that separates the two. For decades, Wildwood Park remained a small town park, loved locally, but known to almost no one else. That changed in the early 1960s. In 1962, The city of Leroy donated its roughly 70 acres of parkland to the state of Minnesota, offering it as the seed of something larger. The next year, in 1963, the Minnesota legislature formally created Lake Louise State Park. A gift that began with one family had grown into a piece of the state park system. From that 70-acre core, the park has expanded outward, and the trail reflects that growth. Some stretches feel intimate and old, close to the historic lake. Others open into wider ground that the state has added over the years. Today, the park is authorized to hold more than 1,100 acres, and it carries roughly a dozen miles of hiking trail. The path under our feet is stitched together from all of that history. Now we return to that word, Savanna. Lake Louise lies within what ecologists call the oak-savanna region, a rare in-between landscape that is neither dense forest nor open prairie. In a true savanna, scattered bur oaks stand alone or in loose groups above a floor of tall grasses and wildflowers. It is a community shaped by fire and by openness, and across the Midwest, almost all of it has been lost to plows and to shade. What survives here is a living fragment of that vanished middle ground. Look up as you walk this stretch and study the shape of the oaks. A tree that grew in the open spreads wide, with heavy low limbs reaching sideways rather than straight up. A tree that grew crowded in a forest is tall and narrow instead. The old wide-crowned oaks along this trail are witnesses, telling us this ground was once far more open than it looks today. Reading their branches is like reading the history of the light that fell here. This park also sits on a great ecological boundary. We are at the eastern edge of the Tallgrass Prairie, the vast sea of grass that once rolled westward across the middle of the continent. To the east lay the big woods and the hardwood forests, and right here the two worlds met and mingled. That is why you can find prairie grasses and woodland trees within a few steps of each other. Lake Louise is a seam in the map, a place where two great biomes overlap. The trail now passes through more open, grassy ground, and the character of the walk changes again. In late October, the tall grasses have gone bronze and gold, bent low by the wind. Seed heads catch the slanting autumn light, and the whole meadow seems to glow. This is what restored prairie looks like as the year winds down. Take a moment to let the wind move through it while we walk. Where the ground stays moist and sheltered, the savanna gives way to true forest. Botanists here have mapped stands of basswood, bur oak, and green ash, along with pin oak woodland on the drier rises. Basswood is a soft-leaved tree that bees adore when it flowers in summer. Bur oak, with its thick fire-resistant bark, is the one tree tough enough to straddle both prairie and forest. Together they weave a shifting mosaic that changes with every dip and swell of the land. Notice how the forest floor opens and closes as we move. In one moment, we are under a closed, leafy roof, cool and deeply shadowed. A few steps later, the canopy breaks and sunlight pours down onto grass. This constant alternation is the signature of savanna country, forest and opening braided together. There is no hard wall between the two, only a gradual conversation. None of this survives on its own anymore. Left alone, brush and shade would swallow the open savanna within a generation, and the prairie would disappear. So the park is actively being restored to oak savanna and tallgrass prairie, and one of the main tools is fire. Carefully managed burns clear out invading brush, return nutrients to the soil, and give the deep-rooted native grasses and wildflowers the open sunlight they need. What looks wild here is in fact tended, with real care and real flame. As the trail curves, watch the ground for signs of that work. You may see the darkened stubble of a past burn, or young oaks rising in the newly opened space. Restoration is slow, measured in decades rather than seasons. The people who care for this park are planting a landscape most of them will never see finished. Walking through it, we are seeing a work in progress, a prairie being coaxed back to life. There is one more thing that makes this corner of Minnesota special, and it lies underground. We are near the western edge of the Driftless area, a region that the last great glaciers largely passed by. Because the ice did not bulldoze it flat, this country keeps its old bones, and here the rivers cut down to shallow limestone. Where water meets that soft rock, it dissolves it, forming the caves, springs, and sinkholes that geologists call karst. The Iowa rivers running through this park are slowly writing that stony story beneath our feet. Back along the water, the trail follows the river as it slides over its limestone bed. In places, the bank shows pale stone beneath the soil. The water here is often clear and cool, fed in part by springs rising from that same rock. These are the kinds of clean, spring-fed streams that make the driftless country famous. Even in a small park like this, the deep geology reaches up and shapes what lives at the surface. Restored grassland is not just scenery, it is habitat, and it brings back birds that are vanishing elsewhere. Among the grassland species recorded here is the Henslow'S Sparrow, a small, secretive bird that Minnesota lists as endangered. It is a creature of open, unmowed grassland, and it disappears the moment its home is plowed or paved. Its faint, insect-like song is easy to miss, but its presence is a signal that the prairie work is succeeding. To hear one here is to hear the land healing. The trail runs along the Meadow Edge now, prime ground for watching and listening. In summer, this open grass hums with insects and birdsong. Even in late October, sparrows flush from the tall stems as we pass, and hawks ride the wind above the open ground. Grassland like this is some of the rarest habitat in the state. Every acre of it kept open is a small act of rescue. The prairie flowers feed more than birds. Lake Louise has a reputation among naturalists as a fine place to watch butterflies, drawn to its wild flowers and undisturbed grasslands. In warmer months, the monarch drifts through on its long migration toward Mexico, laying its eggs on the native milkweed that grows here. Rarer jewels like the Baltimore checker spot have been recorded as well, insects that depend on very specific prairie and wetland plants. Each one is a thread tying the flowers, the grasses, and the seasons together. Walking on, imagine this same meadow in the heat of July, alive with wings. The connection is direct. No wildflowers would mean no butterflies, and no restored prairie would mean no wildflowers. Everything we have talked about, the fire, the savanna, the open grass, comes together in these small flyers. In autumn they are mostly gone or asleep, but the plants that sustain them still stand around us. The whole system is here, simply waiting for spring. Down along the quieter arms of the lake, look for the work of another builder. American beavers live in these waters, and their gnawed stumps and pushed-up lodges appear along the wetland edges. There is a nice symmetry to it, for the beaver is a dam builder too, shaping water just as the town of Leroy once did. Wetlands like these filter the rivers, store floodwater, and shelter frogs, turtles, and wading birds. The margins of this lake are as full of life as its open center. As our loop begins to close, it is worth pausing on the season itself. Late October is a low, golden time in this country, when the oaks turn rust and bronze and the prairie fades to straw. The lake lies still between colored banks, doubling the trees on its surface. There is a hush over the water that only autumn brings, after the summer visitors and before the winter ice. This is Lake Louise at its most reflective, in both senses of the word. We have walked nearly 4 miles around this small lake, and we have circled far more than water. We traced a grist mill, a family's gift, a flood, a rebuilt dam, and a town's decision to hand its park to the state. We walked a seam where prairie meets forest, over limestone laid down long before any of it. A place this quiet turns out to hold a remarkable amount of Minnesota's story. Thank you for watching. Follow for more of the trails of the world.